Welcome back to Smile and Scars, where real actions expose real characters. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe because today's story shows why some people should think twice before picking the wrong target. Now sit back, relax, and listen closely, because what happened on this plane shocked every passenger on board. The morning began like any other travel day. Steven Seagal, calm, collected, dressed in a simple black shirt and sunglasses, arrived quietly at LAX airport. No entourage, no cameras following him, just a man who wanted a peaceful flight from Los Angeles to New York for a charity appearance. He never liked drama, and he definitely wasn't seeking attention. He simply wanted to reach his destination and enjoy the quiet time the sky usually provided. But sometimes life doesn't care what you want. The flight was already chaotic. The airline had staffing issues, delays, and frustrated passengers. People argued about overhead space, crying babies, loud phone calls, the usual. But among the crew was one man passengers immediately noticed. Liam, a tall, muscular flight attendant with a sharp jawline and an even sharper attitude. He strutted like he owned the plane, barking at passengers, rolling his eyes, mocking elderly people struggling with luggage, and snapping at anyone who questioned him. He loved control, he loved being obeyed, and most of all, he loved humiliating people publicly. Passengers whispered about him even before takeoff. "That guy clearly hates his job. He's so rude. I hope he stays away from our row." Unfortunately for Steven, destiny placed Liam right in his aisle. Steven sat near the window, calm, hands folded, observing everything like a quiet storm. He didn't react to the tension around him. In fact, he seemed completely unbothered. That only irritated Liam more. As boarding continued, Liam walked down the aisle, inspecting seatbelts like a prison guard doing cell checks. He stopped beside Steven, narrowed his eyes, and said loudly enough for others to hear, "Seatbelt off. Figures. Always someone who thinks they're special." Passengers who recognized Steven gasped. Some even took out their phones, but Steven didn't say a word. He simply reached for the belt and buckled it, offering a calm nod. Most people would walk away, but Liam wasn't most people. He leaned down, invading Steven's personal space, and hissed next time, "Buckle up before I have to remind you." Still, Steven remained still. "Sir, I heard you the first time. No need for disrespect." That sentence, simple, reasonable, polite, triggered Liam like a grenade. "How about you watch your tone?" Liam snapped. "I'm in charge here." Steven looked forward again, ignoring him. To Liam, that was worse than arguing. He wanted dominance. He wanted fear. He wanted attention. But he couldn't shake Steven's calmness. It felt like a threat he couldn't understand. The plane took off, and for the first 20 minutes, everything was quiet. Drinks were served, seatbelt signs turned off, people relaxed. But Liam couldn't let it go. His ego demanded revenge. He kept glancing at Steven, pacing, clenching his jaw. Finally, an elderly woman across the aisle struggled to reach her bag overhead. Steven stood to help her. It was a simple act of kindness, lifting the bag, smiling, sitting back down, but Liam saw it as defiance. "What do you think you're doing?" he barked, marching toward him. Steven calmly replied, "Helping a lady. You don't touch luggage without crew permission." Liam snapped loudly, drawing attention. "Sit down and keep your hands to yourself." People stared. Some shook their heads. The elderly woman whispered, "He was just helping me." But Liam ignored her. Steven sat slowly, still silent, not backing down, but refusing to escalate. His calmness made Liam feel small, inferior, powerless. And insecure men do dangerous things. 30 minutes later, turbulence hit. The captain told everyone to fasten their seatbelts. Liam rushed down the aisles again, making a dramatic show of checking buckles. When he reached Steven, he stopped, looked at him with evil satisfaction, and noticed the belt wasn't fully tightened, probably because Steven had shifted in his seat. Liam smirked. This was his moment to assert dominance. He grabbed the loose end of the belt, yanked it aggressively, and Steven winced slightly, but Liam didn't stop. Instead, he wrapped the belt forcefully around Steven's chest and neck, like he was restraining a criminal. Passengers gasped, someone screamed, someone else shouted, "Hey, stop," but Liam only pulled harder, tightening it around Stephen's throat. "Maybe now you'll learn to follow instructions," Liam growled. Stephen's breathing cut short as the belt dug into his windpipe. His face reddened, but his eyes, calm, steady, freezing like winter, locked onto Liam's. That stare alone chilled the entire aisle. Passengers rose from their seats, shocked, horrified, helpless. Some yelled, some froze, some grabbed their phones and started recording. But no one dared intervene. Liam was still the authority figure. He still believed he was safe. Big mistake. The entire plane watched a reckless man assault a martial arts legend, but Liam still didn't understand who he was dealing with. Stephen slowly lifted his hands, not in panic, but with precision, like a predator waiting for the right moment. He didn't fight back immediately. Instead, he analyzed Liam's wrist placement, leverage, stance, breathing. Stephen Seagal wasn't panicking, he was calculating. Before he could act, another attendant rushed over. "Liam, stop, let him go," she yelled, her voice trembling, but Liam wasn't listening. Ego had blinded him completely. "You want to act like a tough guy on my plane," Liam shouted, tightening the belt again. "Let's see how tough you really are." At that moment, the plane erupted with outrage. "What's wrong with you? He didn't do anything. Call the captain." But Liam kept pulling until Stephen's voice came out strained but deadly calm. "Let go now." There was no shouting, no panic, just a warning, a final one. Liam ignored it, the worst mistake of his life. He yanked the belt one last time, face red with fury, veins bulging, adrenaline boiling, and right then, Stephen moved. Not wildly, not emotionally, but with the precision of a master who had been trained for decades. His hand shot up, grabbed Liam's wrist, rotated it effortlessly, and suddenly the seatbelt loosened. Liam gasped, not from pain yet, but from disbelief. Stephen's strength wasn't explosive, it was controlled, disciplined, terrifyingly efficient. Passengers stared, stunned, because Stephen didn't strike, didn't hit, didn't even raise his voice. He just held Liam in place with a grip so firm that the bully froze. But Stephen wasn't done. He released the belt, inhaled deeply, regained full composure, then looked at Liam with a stare powerful enough to silence an entire airplane. "Walk away," Stephen said softly. That tone, calm but commanding, was scarier than shouting. But Liam, humiliated, breathing hard, face flushed, doubled down. He snatched his arm back, chest puffed out, and yelled, "You think you can threaten me? I'll have you arrested the moment we land." Stephen didn't respond. He didn't need to. The silence alone suffocated Liam far more than the seatbelt had suffocated Stephen. Passengers began whispering, "That guy's insane. He assaulted him. He should be reported. He picked the wrong man." And right then, the captain made an announcement. "Will the chief flight attendant report to the cockpit immediately?" Someone had already complained. Someone had already shown video. Someone had already demanded action. Liam's confidence shattered. Fear finally crept in. Because now, this wasn't about ego anymore. This was about consequences. He glanced at Stephen again, but Stephen wasn't even looking at him anymore. He was helping the elderly woman pick up her fallen water bottle as if nothing had happened, as if the attack was beneath his attention. Burned Liam Dr. than any Formug, a punishment ever could. Physical, it was psyc, unnaturous ho as lo, it gical. And Stephen had already won. The captain wanted answers. Passengers wanted justice. And the entire nation would soon know what happened on that flight, because half the cabin was recording. But the story wasn't over, because what happened next changed everything, and Liam hadn't even begun to regret what he'd done. The cabin felt frozen. No one moved, no one breathed the air. Pressure wasn't from altitude, it was from fear, shock, and anticipation. Liam stood in the aisle, chest rising and falling rapidly, face pale now instead of angry. His hands trembled, not with rage this time, but with realization. He'd crossed a line, and there was no way back. The captain called again, voice sharper this time. "Chief flight attendant to the cockpit immediately." Passengers stared at Liam like he was a ticking bomb. He swallowed hard, forced a stiff smile, and muttered, "Excuse me," before speed, walking toward the front of the plane. His posture, once tall and arrogant, now seemed smaller, weaker, defeated. Stephen watched him leave but didn't celebrate. He just exhaled slowly, rubbing the red mark the seatbelt had left on his neck. The elderly woman beside him whispered gently, "Are you all right, dear?" Stephen smiled softly. "Yes, ma'am, thank you." That calm reassurance spread like warmth through the cabin. People who had been terrified a moment ago now felt grounded, safe, because Stephen handled everything without violence, without chaos, without ego. He didn't need to prove himself, his restraint already did. But up front, behind the cockpit door, a very different scene unfolded. Liam entered, trying hard to look composed, but the captain had already seen the videos. A flight attendant had rushed in earlier, shaking, explaining everything. The captain's expression was stern, disappointed, the look of a man responsible for hundreds of lives, who just learned one of his crew had become a threat instead of a protector. "What happened out there?" the captain demanded. Liam stuttered. He was refusing instructions. "Don't lie to me." The captain cut in sharply. "I saw the footage." Liam's knees nearly buckled. His excuses evaporated like smoke in wind. The captain shook his head slowly, exhausted, angry, and deeply embarrassed. "You assaulted a passenger," he said. "You put the flight, the airline, and every crew member at risk. Do you understand the severity of this?" Liam didn't answer. He couldn't, his throat tightened, eyes burning. This was no longer about pride. This was about losing everything he had. Meanwhile, in the cabin, people began murmuring, showing each other the videos they recorded. Comments formed instantly. "How is he still employed? He should be in jail." Stephen didn't even fight back, unbelievable restraint. But one voice stood out, a teenage girl, trembling, eyes wide. He could have killed him. Those words hit everyone like turbulence, because suddenly they realized this wasn't just an argument or rudeness or an unprofessional moment. Liam had wrapped a seatbelt around a man's neck and pulled. That was intentional harm. That was violent. That was attempted strangulation. Stephen closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle. He didn't want revenge, lawsuits, attention, or headlines. He wanted peace, but fate rarely gives peace to those who deserve it. 10 minutes later, the captain exited the cockpit and approached Stephen. Passengers straightened, silent, waiting. The captain knelt beside Stephen's seat and spoke respectfully, earnestly. "Sir, I want to apologize personally and on behalf of the airline. What happened was unacceptable." Stephen nodded calmly but didn't speak. His quietness made the captain even more remorseful. "We've secured the situation," the captain continued. "Liam has been removed from duty for the remainder of the flight. He will not come near you or any passenger again." Passengers sighed with relief. Some even clapped quietly, but Stephen gently raised a hand, stopping them. There was no victory in someone else's downfall, not for him. "Thank you, Captain," Stephen finally said, steady as stone. "I appreciate you handling it professionally." The captain bowed his head slightly, humbled, then returned to the front. Liam never came back. Instead, another attendant, a woman named Rachel, took over the aisle, and the energy shifted instantly. She was kind, attentive, apologetic, and sincere. She checked on Stephen several times, making sure he was comfortable, offering water, blankets, ice packs. But Stephen didn't want attention. He didn't want special treatment. He just wanted normalcy. Hours passed, but whispers never stopped. "Can you believe he attacked him? He had no idea who he was messing with. If Stephen wanted to, he could have ended him in one move." People said it with awe, but Stephen didn't feel pride. Fame meant nothing in that moment. What mattered was humanity, and Liam had forgotten his. Finally, the plane began descending into New York. The skyline appeared through the windows, glittering, stretching endlessly, unaware of the drama unfolding thousands of feet above it. But as soon as the landing gear hit the runway, dozens of phones buzzed. Notifications exploded. Videos were already circulating online. Passengers had uploaded them mid-flight. The world was watching before the plane even reached the gate. As they taxied to the terminal, Stephen looked out the window and breathed deeply. He thought it was over. He was wrong. The moment the doors opened, uniformed airport police boarded the plane. Passengers gasped. Some leaned into the aisle for a better view. The officers weren't aggressive or loud. They simply walked with purpose toward the front, where Liam now sat restrained in a jump seat, pale, sweating, trembling. He looked like a man who had just met the consequences he never believed existed. The captain stepped forward and handed over written statements, video recordings, and witness reports. The officers didn't hesitate. They approached Liam, informed him of the charges, and placed handcuffs around his wrists. Passengers watched in stunned silence. Some felt relieved, some felt shocked. Some felt sorry because witnessing someone destroy their own life is never satisfying. As they escorted Liam off the plane, he turned his head toward Stephen, eyes swollen, lips quivering, voice barely audible. "Please, I'm sorry, I didn't know." Stephen studied him, not with hate, not with triumph, but with disappointment, like a teacher looking at a student who chose the wrong path despite knowing better. "You don't treat people like that," Stephen answered quietly. "Not ever." Liam lowered his head, tears falling onto the carpeted floor, and allowed himself to be led away. Passengers clapped this time, not for punishment, but for justice. When everyone began exiting the aircraft, many stopped by Stephen's seat. "You handled that with so much grace. You saved more than yourself, thank you. You taught him a lesson without even touching him." Stephen only nodded, offering small smiles, grateful but not boastful. The elderly woman he helped earlier patted his shoulder gently. "The world needs more men like you," Stephen replied softly. "The world needs fewer moments like that." Outside the gate, reporters were already gathering. Word spread faster than luggage on conveyor belts, but Stephen didn't stop for interviews. He didn't want fame from fear. He didn't want headlines from harassment. He simply walked out quietly, hands in pockets, breathing the freedom of solid ground. Meanwhile, an internal airline investigation launched instantly. Within 48 hours, Liam was terminated, banned from commercial flights, and formally charged with assault and reckless endangerment. He faced court, mandatory therapy, and public humiliation. But somewhere underneath all that legal aftermath was the truth. He realized what his arrogance had cost him. Not just a job, not just a reputation, but dignity and respect. Weeks later, a letter reached Stephen's charity office. Handwritten, unsteady, emotional, it was from Liam. He apologized, not forced, not scripted, but sincerely. He admitted he let power go to his head, treated passengers as beneath him, used authority as permission for cruelty. He said Stephen's calmness humiliated his ego more than any punch could have. He said being arrested wasn't the worst day of his life, realizing who he had become was. Stephen read the letter slowly, thoughtfully, then smiled faintly and placed it in a drawer. Because forgiveness doesn't always need an audience. At the next Smile and Scars charity event, someone asked Stephen on camera, "What would you say to people who let power change them?" Stephen paused, looked into the lens, and answered, "Respect is earned through kindness, not control, not fear, not authority." The room fell silent, inspired, awakened, humbled. Because the story wasn't about a fight on a plane, it was about humanity. Power doesn't reveal character, it exposes it. And sometimes, the strongest person in the room is the one who chooses not to fight.